Life rarely unfolds according to plan. Just when you think you've established stability and routine, everything shifts. The job you thought was secure suddenly disappears. The relationship you invested years in comes to an unexpected end. The world experiences a global pandemic that transforms how we live, work, and connect. Or perhaps positive changes arrive. A new opportunity emerges. A baby joins your family, or you finally achieve that goal you've been working toward for years. Whether welcome or unwelcome, change is the only true constant in our lives. Yet most of us spend enormous energy resisting this fundamental truth, desperately seeking permanence in an impermanent world. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to fight against change? How much anxiety comes from trying to control the uncontrollable? What if there was a different approach? One that didn't require constant struggle against reality? What if instead of viewing change as your enemy, you could transform it into your greatest teacher and ally? Today, we're exploring Brad Stulberg's revolutionary bestseller, Master of Change: How to Excel When Everything is Changing, including you. In our rapidly evolving world, where technological advancements, social shifts, and personal transformations occur at dizzying speeds, Stulberg offers not just comfort, but a practical, science-backed framework for thriving amid uncertainty. Whether you're navigating career disruption, relationship evolution, health challenges, identity questions, or simply feeling overwhelmed by our increasingly complex world, this book provides profound insights that can fundamentally alter your relationship with change. By the end of this summary, you'll understand how to develop what Stulberg calls rugged flexibility, a powerful mindset that combines unwavering core principles with remarkable adaptability. You'll discover how to bend without breaking, how to maintain your essence while evolving your form, and how to find opportunity within disruption. So if you've ever felt destabilized by change, anxious about uncertainty, or stuck in transition, stay with me. The insights you'll gain over the next hour won't just help you survive change, they'll empower you to harness it as a catalyst for unprecedented growth and fulfillment. Section 1. Why change is hard. Change is fundamentally challenging for humans on multiple levels: biological, psychological, and social. Our brains evolved during times when predictability meant survival, and unpredictability often signaled danger. When we experience change, especially unexpected or unwanted change, our nervous systems respond as if we're facing a physical threat. Our amygdala, the brain's alarm system, activates. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood our bodies. Our thinking narrows to focus on perceived threats, and we instinctively resist what's happening. Stulberg explains that while this initial resistance is natural, prolonged resistance is what transforms difficult situations into genuine suffering. When we continuously fight against change, we create a persistent internal conflict between reality and our expectations. This gap, between what is actually happening and what we believe should be happening, becomes the source of our deepest distress. Consider a personal example from your own life. Perhaps you experienced a significant career setback, being passed over for promotion, having a project fail, or even losing your job. Your initial reaction likely involved some combination of shock, denial, anger, and bargaining, all forms of resistance. This can't be happening. It's not fair. If only I had done X differently. These reactions are completely natural, but they're also exhausting and ultimately unproductive. Stulberg cites fascinating research from the field of psychoneuroimmunology showing that chronic resistance to change creates what scientists call allostatic load. Essentially, the physiological wear and tear that comes from sustained stress. This increased stress burden manifests as elevated inflammation, impaired immune function, disrupted sleep patterns, digestive issues, and even accelerated cellular aging. One study he references found that people with high resistance to change experienced a 43% higher risk of early mortality compared to those who demonstrated greater adaptability. The psychological cost is equally severe. When we're locked in resistance mode, our attention fixates on what we've lost or what we fear losing. This narrow focus prevents us from seeing potential opportunities, learning valuable lessons, or discovering new paths forward. We become trapped in what psychologists call cognitive tunneling, seeing only the threat rather than the complete picture. Resistance to change often isolates us at exactly the time when connection would be most beneficial. We might withdraw from others out of shame, frustration, or the misguided belief that we should have it all figured out before engaging. Or we might exhaust our support networks by continuously revisiting the same complaints without moving toward acceptance or adaptation. But here's the profound insight that Stulberg offers. While change itself may be inevitable, our response to it is something we can influence and ultimately transform. And that's where the concept of rugged flexibility becomes so powerful. Section 2. Developing rugged flexibility. At the core of Stulberg's philosophy lies the concept of rugged flexibility, an approach that might initially seem contradictory, but actually represents a perfect balance. Being rugged means having a solid foundation of values, purpose, and identity that remains constant even as circumstances change around you. Being flexible means willingly adapting your thoughts, behaviors, expectations, and plans to align with new realities. Rugged flexibility isn't about being completely rigid nor entirely fluid. It's about finding the perfect dynamic tension between stability and adaptability. Stulberg uses several powerful metaphors to illustrate this concept. He compares it to a tree with deep roots and flexible branches. The roots provide stability and nourishment, while the branches can bend dramatically with strong winds without breaking. He also likens it to skilled martial artists who maintain a strong center while flowing with and redirecting the energy of opponents rather than meeting force with force. To develop rugged flexibility, Stulberg emphasizes that we must first clarify our core values, the fundamental principles that define who we are and what matters most to us. These values become our anchor points during times of transition and uncertainty. When everything around you is shifting, knowing what you stand for provides crucial stability. Stulberg offers a detailed process for identifying these core values, including reflection questions like, what were the moments in your life when you felt most alive and fulfilled? What do you want people to remember about you after you're gone? And what principles would you refuse to compromise on, even under pressure? Through these reflections, you can distill 3 to 5 core values that serve as your internal compass. For example, if one of your core values is creativity, that value remains constant whether you're expressing it through your current profession, a different career path, volunteer work, or personal projects. The form may change dramatically, but the essence remains. Similarly, if connection is a core value, it can be expressed through many different relationships and communities throughout your life, even as specific relationships evolve or end. Stulberg shares the remarkable story of Tommy Caldwell, one of the world's premier rock climbers, who lost his index finger, arguably the most important digit for his sport, in a devastating accident. For many climbers, this would have been career-ending. Instead of giving up, Caldwell adapted his climbing technique, developed new skills, and went on to complete some of the most challenging climbs in history, including the first free climb of Yosemite's Dawn Wall, considered one of the hardest rock climbing achievements ever. His core value of challenging himself through climbing remained, even though how he expressed that value had to change dramatically. Another powerful example Stulberg provides is the story of Christine, a marketing executive who lost her high-paying corporate position during a restructuring. Initially devastated by this unwelcome change, Christine eventually recognized this disruption as an opportunity to pursue her long-suppressed dream of becoming a writer. While the transition was challenging, involving financial adjustments, identity shifts, and the development of new skills, her core values of creativity, self-expression, and making a meaningful impact remained constant. The form changed, but the essence stayed the same. 5 years later, Christine had published 2 successful books and reported greater fulfillment than she had ever experienced in her corporate role. Developing rugged flexibility also requires embracing what Stulberg calls non-dual thinking, moving beyond simplistic either-or perspectives to recognize the complexity and nuance in situations. Change is rarely all good or all bad. It usually contains elements of both, often simultaneously. Learning to hold these contradictions, to see both the challenges and the opportunities within change, is essential to navigating it effectively. Cites research from developmental psychology suggesting that this capacity for nuanced thinking actually represents a more advanced cognitive stage. While binary thinking feels certain and comfortable, it fails to capture the rich complexity of real-life situations. Non-dual thinking requires more cognitive flexibility, but ultimately leads to greater wisdom and more effective responses to change. Section 3. The role of mindset in mastering change. Our mindset, the mental framework through which we interpret and make meaning of events, plays a pivotal role in how we experience change. Stulberg draws on extensive research from psychology, neuroscience, and contemplative traditions to explain how our mental models can either facilitate adaptation or keep us stuck in patterns of resistance and suffering. One of the most fundamental mindset shifts involves moving from seeing change as a threat to seeing it as a challenge. This distinction might seem semantic, but research shows it creates dramatically different physiological and psychological responses. When we view disruption as threatening, our bodies respond with defensive reactions, increased blood pressure, muscle tension, and narrowed thinking focused only on escape or self-protection. When we reframe the same situation as challenging, we're more likely to engage our problem-solving abilities, creativity, and resilience. In one study Stulberg cites, participants were given identical difficult tasks, but with different framing. Those told to view the task as a threat showed elevated stress hormones and poorer performance, while those encouraged to see it as a challenge demonstrated more optimal physiological responses and significantly better outcomes. This research underscores how powerfully our interpretations shape our experiences. Stulberg introduces the concept of tragic optimism, a term coined by psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. Tragic optimism means acknowledging the difficulties, pain, and legitimate losses of a situation while still maintaining hope and finding meaning within it. It's not about toxic positivity or denying reality, but about recognizing that hardship and growth can coexist, that suffering can be the catalyst for transformation. This mindset is exemplified by people who have faced extreme adversity, yet emerged not just intact, but somehow expanded. Stulberg shares stories of individuals who have experienced serious illness, devastating loss, or profound failure, yet found ways to create meaning from these experiences. They didn't deny their suffering or minimize their losses, but they refused to be permanently defined by them. Instead, they integrated these experiences into a larger narrative that included both pain and possibility. Another critical mindset shift involves how we view our identity. Many of us become strongly attached to specific roles or self-definitions. I am a doctor. I am an athlete. I am a parent. I am successful. While these identities provide a sense of meaning and purpose, they can become problematic when circumstances force us to change, or when we outgrow previous versions of ourselves. Stulberg suggests developing what he calls a process identity, rather than a fixed one. Instead of defining yourself by specific achievements, roles, or circumstances, define yourself by your ongoing process of growth and engagement with life. This creates space for evolution and adaptation without losing your sense of self. For example, rather than identifying as a CEO, you might identify as someone who enjoys building and leading organizations. Rather than a runner, you might see yourself as someone who values physical challenge and movement. The latter identities allow for more flexibility as circumstances change, while still honoring what matters to you. Stulberg shares the story of Michael, a former Olympic athlete whose entire identity was wrapped up in his sport. When injury forced his early retirement, he experienced what he described as identity death, a profound loss of purpose and meaning. His recovery began when he shifted from seeing himself as an Olympic athlete to someone who pursues excellence and inspires others. This broader identity allowed him to find new expressions for his core values, eventually becoming a successful coach and mentor. Section 4. Practical Strategies for Navigating Change. Stulberg doesn't just offer philosophical perspectives on change, he provides concrete, actionable tools for navigating it effectively. These evidence-based strategies help translate the concept of rugged flexibility into daily practice, offering a roadmap for those in the midst of transition. One powerful approach is what Stulberg calls the 4 Ps: pause, process, plan, and proceed. When facing disruption, our initial reactions are often unhelpful. We might panic, freeze, lash out, or make impulsive decisions that we later regret. The 4 Ps provide a structured way to respond more effectively. Pause. Take a deliberate break before reacting. This creates space between stimulus and response, allowing your initial emotional reactions to settle. This might involve taking several deep breaths, sleeping on a decision, or simply stepping away from a situation temporarily. Research shows that even a brief pause can dramatically improve decision quality during stressful situations. Process. Acknowledge and work through your emotions and the reality of the situation. This involves practices like journaling, talking with trusted friends, or working with a therapist to explore your feelings about the change. Importantly, processing isn't just about venting emotions. It's about moving toward acceptance of the new reality. Plan. Consider how to move forward in alignment with your values. What specific actions will help you adapt while honoring what matters most to you? This planning stage should be concrete and practical, focused on next steps rather than the distant future. Proceed. Take action based on your plan. Even small steps forward can generate momentum and a sense of agency. Action also provides new information that allows you to refine your approach as you go. Stulberg shares the example of Maya, a woman whose long-term relationship ended unexpectedly. Her initial impulse was to immediately contact her ex-partner and try to change his mind. Instead, she applied the 4 Ps, pausing to allow her intense emotions to settle, processing her feelings through journaling and conversations with close friends, planning small steps to rebuild her independent life, and proceeding with these actions one day at a time. While the breakup remained painful, this approach helped her navigate the transition with greater dignity and self-compassion. Another practical strategy Stulberg emphasizes is behavioral activation, the understanding that action often precedes motivation rather than following it. When facing change, we often wait to feel ready or motivated before taking action. Stulberg argues that this approach has it backward. By taking action, even small steps, we generate energy, momentum, and positive emotion that makes adaptation easier. For example, if you've lost your job, you might not feel motivated to update your resume, network, or explore new career paths. Waiting for motivation might leave you stuck for weeks or months. Instead, committing to taking one small action each day, regardless of how you feel, often creates a positive feedback loop that reduces anxiety and increases your sense of agency. This approach is supported by research on depression treatment, where behavioral activation has been shown to be as effective as cognitive therapy and medication for many people. The simple act of doing something, even without initial motivation, can shift brain chemistry and emotional states in positive directions. Stulberg also emphasizes the importance of adjusting expectations during times of change. He notes that happiness at any given moment is a function of your reality minus your expectations. Since we can't always control reality, especially during times of change, managing our expectations becomes crucial. This doesn't mean lowering your standards or ambitions, but rather being realistic about timelines and outcomes. For instance, if you're learning a new skill after a career change, expecting immediate mastery will lead to frustration. Adjusting your expectations to allow for a learning curve reduces unnecessary suffering, while still maintaining forward momentum. Stulberg suggests regular expectation checks during transitions, asking yourself, are my expectations aligned with reality? Are they serving me or causing additional suffering? The book also discusses the value of community during change. Humans are inherently social creatures, and having supportive relationships provides both emotional comfort and practical assistance during transitions. Stulberg recommends intentionally cultivating relationships with people who can offer different types of support. Emotional supporters, those who provide empathy, understanding, and a safe space to process feelings. Practical helpers, those who offer tangible assistance, advice, and resources. Challengers, those who compassionately push you to grow and hold you accountable. Research consistently shows that social support is one of the strongest predictors of resilience during difficult life transitions. One study Stulberg cites found that people with strong social connections were up to 50% more likely to thrive after major life disruptions compared to those who faced changes in isolation. Leveraging change for growth. Perhaps the most transformative aspect of Stulberg's approach is the idea that change, even unwelcome change, can be a catalyst for profound growth and development. Drawing on extensive research in post-traumatic growth, he explains how adversity can lead to 5 specific types of positive transformation. Increased personal strength, discovering capacities for resilience and adaptation you didn't know you possessed. Deeper relationships, developing more authentic, vulnerable connections with others. Greater appreciation for life. Finding enhanced gratitude for simple pleasures and everyday experiences. New possibilities. Discovering paths and opportunities that weren't visible before. Spiritual or existential development. Developing a deeper understanding of life's meaning and your place in it. Importantly, Stulberg emphasizes that this growth doesn't happen automatically or easily. It requires what he calls productive struggle, engaging with difficulty in ways that stretch us without breaking us. When we avoid struggle entirely, we miss opportunities for development. When we're overwhelmed by struggle, we're unable to learn from it. The sweet spot is challenging ourselves enough to grow while still having the resources to cope. This concept is supported by research on what psychologists call the zone of proximal development, the range of challenges that are difficult enough to promote growth, but not so difficult that they lead to demoralization. Finding this zone during times of change involves carefully calibrating the challenges you take on and ensuring you have adequate support. Stulberg shares the concept of stress inoculation, the idea that experiencing and successfully navigating moderate challenges builds resilience for future difficulties. This doesn't mean seeking out hardship for its own sake, but rather approaching inevitable challenges with a growth mindset and seeing them as opportunities to develop psychological antibodies that will serve you well during future transitions. One particularly powerful framework Stulberg offers is seeing change as a form of grief. Any significant change involves loss of routines, relationships, identities, expectations, or futures we had imagined for ourselves. Acknowledging and processing these losses is essential to moving forward. By honoring what's being left behind, we create space to embrace what's emerging. Stulberg describes the work of psychologist William Bridges, who identified 3 phases of transition: endings, the neutral zone, and new beginnings. Most people want to rush through the first 2 phases to get to new beginnings, but Bridges' research shows that fully experiencing endings and the ambiguity of the neutral zone is essential for successful transitions. Trying to skip these stages often leads to superficial change that doesn't last. The book also explores how change can be an opportunity to reassess priorities and realign with what truly matters. Often, disruption forces us to question assumptions and habits that may have been carrying us in directions we never consciously chose. These moments of upheaval can become invitations to more intentional living. Stulberg shares the story of James, a high-powered attorney who experienced a health crisis that forced him to step back from his demanding career. During his recovery, he realized that while he valued excellence and impact, core values that had drawn him to law, he had been sacrificing other important values like presence with his family and care for his health. The crisis became a wake-up call that allowed him to redesign his life to honor all of his core values, not just a select few. Years later, he described his health crisis as the best worst thing that ever happened to me. Painful, but ultimately transformative. Section 6. Applying these principles in different contexts. The beauty of Stulberg's approach is that it applies across various types of change, from personal transitions to professional disruptions to societal shifts. While the specific strategies might vary, the underlying principles of rugged flexibility remain consistent. In the professional realm, rugged flexibility helps navigate career transitions, organizational changes, and technological disruptions that have become increasingly common in our rapidly evolving economy. By staying connected to your core values and transferable skills while adapting your specific role, industry, or approach, you can remain relevant and engaged even as industries transform. Stulberg shares examples of professionals who have successfully pivoted their careers by transferring their fundamental strengths to new contexts. He tells the story of David, a print journalist who faced industry disruption as newspapers declined. Clinging to his specific role, David identified his core values: truth-telling, clear communication, and making complex issues accessible, and transferable skills: research, interviewing, and storytelling. This allowed him to transition into podcast production and eventually documentary filmmaking, different forms that still honored his essential purpose. For relationships, these principles help navigate the inevitable changes that occur in partnerships, families, and friendships over time. All relationships evolve, and applying rugged flexibility means honoring the core connection while adapting to new circumstances, whether that's a cross-country move, the arrival of children, career changes, health challenges, or simply the natural evolution of people's needs and interests over time. Stulberg discusses research showing that couples who maintain the highest relationship satisfaction over decades aren't those who experience the fewest changes or challenges, but rather those who adapt together while maintaining their fundamental commitment and connection. He shares techniques for relationship agility, approaches that help partnerships evolve without losing their foundation. When it comes to health and aging, Stulberg's approach is particularly valuable. Our bodies inevitably change over time, and clinging to past capabilities or appearances leads to frustration and suffering. Rugged flexibility means maintaining core values around health and well-being while adapting how you express them as your body changes. For instance, if physical challenge has always been important to you, you might need to shift from high-impact activities to gentler forms of movement as you age. The specific activities change, but the underlying value remains. Similarly, if appearance has been important to your identity, finding ways to express style and self-care that work with your changing body, rather than fighting against natural aging processes, represents rugged flexibility in action. Even for societal and global changes, technological disruptions, cultural shifts, environmental challenges, political transformations, the principles of rugged flexibility offer guidance. Rather than reacting with either rigid resistance or passive acceptance, we can engage thoughtfully, holding firm to core values while adapting to new realities. Stulberg discusses how communities that successfully navigate major social changes tend to preserve their fundamental cultural values while evolving their specific practices. He contrasts this with communities that either resist all change, becoming increasingly isolated and often embittered, or abandon their core identity entirely, losing connection to what made them distinctive and meaningful. Section 7. The 10 Tools for Developing Rugged Flexibility. Stulberg concludes his book with 10 practical tools for developing rugged flexibility. These represent the culmination of his approach, providing concrete practices that readers can implement immediately. Clarify your core values. Take time to identify the 3 to 5 principles that define who you are and what matters most to you. Stulberg offers specific exercises like the peak moments reflection, recalling times when you felt most alive and identifying the values present in those moments, and the eulogy exercise, imagining what you'd want said about you at the end of your life. Embrace non-dual thinking. Practice holding contradictions and seeing nuance rather than falling into black and white perspectives. When facing a challenging change, try listing both potential benefits and difficulties rather than categorizing it as entirely good or bad. Notice when you use absolute language like always, never, or completely, and challenge yourself to find exceptions and complexity. Practice tragic optimism. Acknowledge difficulties while maintaining hope and seeking meaning. This involves neither toxic positivity, denying problems, nor cynical pessimism, seeing only problems. Instead, it means facing reality honestly, while actively looking for possibilities within constraints. Stulberg suggests a daily practice of noting both challenges and opportunities, as well as regularly asking, what meaning might I create from this situation? Develop a process identity. Define yourself by your ongoing engagement with life rather than by fixed roles or achievements. Stulberg recommends reframing identity statements from nouns to verbs, from I am a teacher to I love helping others learn and grow, for instance. This subtle shift creates space for evolution while maintaining connection to what matters to you. Use the 4 Ps framework. Pause, process, plan, and proceed when facing disruption. Stulberg provides specific techniques for each stage, including breathing exercises for pausing, journaling prompts for processing, decision matrices for planning, and accountability structures for proceeding. Behavioral activation. Take action to generate motivation rather than waiting to feel motivated. Start with tiny steps that require minimal energy but create momentum. Stulberg suggests the 5-minute rule. Committing to just 5 minutes of an important activity, knowing you can stop after that if you want to, though you'll often continue once you've started. Adjust expectations. Recognize that happiness depends partly on the gap between reality and expectations. Regularly assess whether your expectations are aligned with reality and whether they're serving you. Stulberg recommends the practice of expectation auditing, reviewing your expectations for various life domains and adjusting those that create unnecessary suffering. Cultivate supportive relationships. Build a community that provides different types of support during transitions. Stulberg suggests creating a personal board of directors, a diverse group of people who offer different perspectives and forms of support. He provides conversation starters for deepening existing relationships and strategies for developing new connections during major life changes. Seek productive struggle. Engage with difficulty in ways that stretch you without breaking you. Stulberg introduces the concept of deliberate discomfort, intentionally putting yourself in challenging but manageable situations to build resilience. This might involve trying new activities where you lack expertise, engaging with perspectives different from your own, or gradually expanding your comfort zone in areas relevant to your growth. View change as grief. Acknowledge losses while creating space for new possibilities. Stulberg shares rituals for honoring endings, techniques for navigating the neutral zone of transition, and practices for embracing new beginnings. He emphasizes the importance of giving yourself permission to mourn what's changing while remaining open to what's emerging. These tools don't eliminate the difficulty of change, but they provide a framework for navigating it with greater resilience and even finding growth within it. Stulberg emphasizes that developing rugged flexibility isn't a one-time achievement, but rather an ongoing practice, one that becomes more natural with time, but remains a deliberate choice we make again and again as we face life's inevitable transitions. Conclusion. As we conclude our journey through Master of Change, let's reflect on the core message that Brad Stulberg offers us. Change is not something to be feared, resisted, or merely endured. Rather, it's a fundamental part of the human experience that, when approached with wisdom and intention, can become a catalyst for our deepest growth and most meaningful transformations. In a world that continues to evolve at an unprecedented pace, where technological revolutions, social shifts, environmental challenges, and personal transitions occur with increasing frequency, the ability to navigate change effectively is perhaps the most essential skill we can develop. By cultivating rugged flexibility, that powerful combination of steadfast values and adaptable approaches, we can find stability amid chaos and possibility amid disruption. Remember that mastering change isn't about eliminating difficulty or uncertainty. It's not about reaching some perfect state where transitions no longer challenge us. Rather, it's about developing the mindset, practices, and supportive relationships that allow us to engage with life's inevitable changes in ways that honor both what remains constant and what must evolve. The journey toward rugged flexibility isn't linear or finite. It's a path we walk throughout our lives, sometimes stumbling, sometimes striding confidently, but always with the potential to learn and grow. Each change we face, whether chosen or imposed, welcome or unwelcome, offers an opportunity to deepen our understanding of ourselves and expand our capacity for adaptation. As Brad Stulberg so powerfully reminds us, we cannot control the winds of change, but we can learn to adjust our sails. We can develop the strength to withstand storms without breaking, and the flexibility to harness even contrary winds to move us forward. And in doing so, we may discover that the very changes we once feared can carry us to destinations more meaningful and fulfilling than we ever imagined. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Master of Change. May the insights we've discussed serve you well as you navigate your own journey of transformation and growth. Remember that you have within you everything you need to not just survive change, but to truly master it, to find within life's inevitable transitions the seeds of your most authentic and meaningful life.